Since the earliest days of video games, there has always been this desire to expand immersion, to push beyond the confines of your television and into a new reality, a virtual reality, if you will. Yet this promise of a new world has proven difficult to achieve. Early attempts at simulating virtual spaces using head-mounted displays dazzled the few that experienced it, but the high cost and low fidelity made it impossible to achieve true mainstream success. The hardware simply was not there yet. Fast forward to the year 2012. With a duct tape prototype in hand, John Carmack helped introduce the world to what would eventually become known as the Oculus Rift. Suddenly, virtual reality for consumers stood the chance of becoming an actual reality. It found moderate success, and the modern VR industry as we know it today was born. Over the next few years, however, the market began to fragment. Oculus transitioned from its own proprietary PC storefront to standalone hardware with the Oculus Quest line, while Valve and third-party manufacturers focused instead on the high-end PC experience via Steam VR. Then there was Sony. They offered owners of PlayStation 4 consoles an opportunity to step into the world of virtual reality with PlayStation VR, and it's from this point that our story today begins. The PSVR found just enough success to warrant a follow-up, and that follow-up is known as PlayStation VR2. PSVR 2 fundamentally is an all-new design that promises cutting-edge VR technology with significant evolution both within the headset itself and in the controllers. Starting at $549 US, however, and with limited availability, the PSVR 2 is not a casual purchase. This is something you'll be committing to for, hopefully, years to come. The question I'd like to explore in today's review then is simple. What does PSVR 2 really bring to the table, and how does it stack up against the current competition? I'll discuss the OLED screen, the haptic features, the Sense controllers, and more, while also showcasing how all of this applies to various games on offer. So join me as we take a closer look at PlayStation VR 2. PSVR 2 ships in this box, and within you'll find the headset, 2 controllers, and an accessories box. If you're coming from the original PSVR, the first thing you'll notice is the drastic reduction in complexity. There's no breakout box or pass-through to worry about any longer. The headset has a single lengthy USB-C cable, and that's really all you're gonna need. Build quality feels great. The materials used on the headset are certainly reminiscent of the original unit, but it addresses many of those original complaints. The rubber surrounding the viewfinder, for instance, provides drastically more light blocking while offering improved comfort. The headset is also noticeably lighter, making long sessions more enjoyable, while the single USB-C cable is significantly less bulky than that on the original PSVR. Furthermore, the new controllers just feel premium. They're dense and just weighty enough to feel great in the hand. We'll talk more about those soon, however. If you've only used the original PSVR, all these improvements will feel immediately obvious, but of course there is a lot of competition in this space, so to break it down, let's walk through the different aspects of this headset and the setup process while assessing performance along the way. It begins with the headset itself. Like the original and Oculus Rift S for that matter, the PSVR 2 uses a halo system. You push this button on the rear of the unit to release the band, slide it over your head, then twist this dial to tighten it. The front visor is still controlled by a small button mounted along the top ridge of the unit. Press this to move the viewfinder in and out. PSVR 2 also features mechanical interpupillary distance via this dial here. This allows you to perfectly center the lenses in front of your own pupils. It's also comfortable to wear with glasses, thankfully. Once the headset is firmly in place then, you'll be presented with a series of setup steps. Unlike PSVR 1, this new headset does not rely on external tracking, so no camera or sensors are required. To determine the size and shape of your play space, the headset can basically scan the environment around you, creating this blue mesh representing the available area. It doesn't flash like this inside the headset, by the way. This is just in the capture. Now, it all feels kind of magical, but it can even be tweaked if you wish by simply pointing your controllers and dragging the edges outward. You can even assign temporary spaces if you move the headset around or just want to play seated once in a while. It's kind of comparable to the Guardian setup with the Oculus products, but feels even more robust. Once inside the unit, however, you'll be given your first glimpse of the new OLED panel driving this headset. There's several key areas to discuss here then: field of view, pixel density, panel brightness, contrast ratio, and motion clarity. PSVR2 has a rated FOV of 110 degrees, much wider than Oculus Quest and the original PSVR for that matter, but not quite on par with something like the Vive Pro 2. However, in practice, it crosses that important line between looking through a porthole and having a full-on view of the action. You'll notice the left and right edges of the screen like most headsets, but vertical visibility is nearly perfect. It feels instantly engaging and immersive. In terms of image clarity, PSVR2 features 4 times the number of pixels per eye compared to PSVR1, almost entirely eliminating the screen door effect in the process. It's extremely sharp and clean to the point where even small UI elements are perfectly legible. It's sharper in practice than just about any headset I've personally used. Alas, I have not had a chance to try the HTC Vive Pro 2, which boasts an even higher pixel count, though that headset uses an LCD rather than an OLED. Which brings us to perhaps the most important aspect: the contrast ratio and support for high dynamic range, or HDR. In the past, especially with these older headsets like the PSVR1, I've always felt that the imagery they could display appears somewhat dim and grainy, especially in bright scenes. That is no longer the case here. PSVR2 boasts the brightest headset experience I've enjoyed to date. Bright scenes now project light that feels more natural to what your eyes might expect in the real world, outdoors at least, rather than the dull, washed-out colors you get in most other headsets. Darker content has benefits as well. You would expect OLED to have perfect blacks, but prior headsets using this technology absolutely did not. In comparison, PSVR2 can display absolute black while displaying VR imagery. The combination of bright highlights with deep black levels dramatically improves the presentation and contrast ratio. I really cannot overstate this enough. It now feels more comparable to a proper high-end OLED TV. It's really impressive. And beyond that, it retains the same low persistence, high performance characteristics you'd expect in a VR headset. At 90 or 120 Hz native, for instance, the clarity of motion is perfect. It actually resembles what's possible when using black frame insertion on a modern OLED panel, but without the flicker. Alas, for the games that run at just 60 frames per second, using asynchronous time warp to create the illusion of 120 Hz head movement, you will notice a double image effect on moving objects. It is unfortunately the nature of the beast, and something you'll find in every other headset or even TV screen when displaying 60 Hz content within a 120 Hz container. So the screen is a huge part of the experience, and it is competitive with other high-end PC headsets when factoring all elements together. But there is more to PlayStation VR2 than just what you see on the screen. First, I want to talk about the head tracking. For those with experience on PC headsets or something like the Oculus Quest, head tracking is a problem solved long ago. But if you've only used PSVR1, it's worth noting that this new headset features perfect headset tracking. There's no wobble or swimming within the headset, which was very common with the original, and it perfectly tracks your surroundings, allowing you to walk around your room freely. But that's not the only thing it can track. PSVR2 also features gaze tracking. That is, it can monitor the position of your eyes. This can be used to improve rendering performance or enhance gameplay. With the former, the boost is the result of foveated rendering. The idea is to render fewer pixels within peripheral vision to reduce the workload. With most, but not all headsets, when used, it's typically a fixed area that can have an impact on overall visual quality, just around the peripheral of the lenses. With PSVR2, however, the pixel density of a scene can vary based on where your eyes are actually looking. This isn't the first headset to offer this feature, mind you, but it's very useful for boosting frame rate while minimizing loss in visual clarity. You can really see it here in this shot. The drum is completely clear when I focus on it, but when I shift my gaze, it becomes blurry. You do not see this during actual gameplay in the headset, just in the capture. There's also gameplay implications. Certain titles allow you to directly interact with the scene by simply moving your eyes. In Horizon, for instance, you can select from menus entirely with your eyes without moving your head, which is a neat trick, but a better example is something like Res Infinite. There's a mode available in this game that allows you to use your eyes for targeting enemies, and it works. It's completely wild shooting down enemies just using your eyes. It genuinely feels great to play it this way. We'll have to wait and see what else is done with it, but it's very promising. One thing to note, after speaking with the DF community, I decided to test this feature by closing one eye. Unfortunately, it does not work when doing this. Something to keep in mind for very specific use cases. The last major aspect of the headset though are the haptics. Now this isn't anything revolutionary, and it basically resembles the sensation you get from a normal DualSense controller, but adding it to the headset itself is pretty cool and helps add some additional feedback to the experience. When something rushes past your head in a game like Horizon, for instance, or when you enter the world of synesthesia in Res Infinite, you'll certainly feel the headset. It's not game-changing, but it enhances immersion significantly. As for the audio then, the headset does not include built-in speakers. Instead, it has a 3.5mm headphone jack for use with external earphones. The package includes a pair of earbuds, which click into place along the backside of the headset, however, which is very nice. And they actually sound pretty good and do work with PS5's 3D audio features. You'll experience the illusion of positional audio while using it, and it's very effective in VR. Oh, and I almost forgot, on the underside of the visor, just next to the power button, you'll find a circular button that activates the camera system. You can press this at any time, allowing you to see the world around you. This way you can get your bearings without having to remove the headset each time. The key here is that all these different technologies combine to create something that's comfortable, high in fidelity, and super precise. It feels like a high-end product, which given the price, it absolutely should. Of course, most high-end headsets are designed for PC, yet PSVR2 features a single USB-C cable. Theoretically, this should work on the PC, right? Well, we know that it doesn't, and if you try to plug it in right now, Windows simply returns an error message noting that the USB device has an issue. But I'm sure hoping that modders get their hands on this thing soon, because it would be fantastic if PSVR could also work with Steam VR. It would be a no-brainer for VR fans at that point given the quality of the headset. But of course, these days, VR is a lot more than just the headset. The controllers are every bit as important to the experience. Now, the original PSVR, which launched at $399 did not include any controllers at all, nor the camera required to track the headset. It was specifically designed to be used with PS Move controllers, which, while good for their time, were not suitable for proper VR. At launch, Sony offered a package including the Move controllers and camera for $499. So out of the gate, the original was certainly a little bit cheaper, but they are comparable in price. Now the Sense controllers are key to the experience. Hand tracking is nothing new for most VR systems, of course, but if you're coming from the PSVR with the Move controllers, it'll be a revelation. This is the key behind proper VR interaction and what really helps set it apart from PSVR 1. The controller design is, quite frankly, pretty much just a direct copy of the Oculus Touch. You have the same outer loop design, though configured slightly differently, a similar button configuration, and capacitive buttons as well. However, this is a very good thing, as Oculus Touch is fantastic, and so are the Sense controllers. Like Touch, the Sense relies on inside-out tracking from the headset, and they do work anywhere in the room. This is important because it ensures you won't run into any occlusion issues or glitches when moving around, which again was super common with the PS Move. Both controllers also include wrist straps for your own safety, complete with fasteners featuring a little engraved PlayStation logo. I definitely recommend using them, trust me. The difference between the Sense controllers and Oculus Touch mainly comes down to the haptics. The quality of these haptics is greatly improved, resembling the DualSense controller that ships with the PS5 and of course the headset itself. As you often use your hands within the game worlds in VR, the extra haptic feedback you get really amps up the overall immersion. I will say though, as good as the hand tracking tends to be, it isn't 100% flawless and does kind of vary between games. Something like Horizon, for instance, I sometimes found that my hands would randomly do strange things and get caught up when interacting with certain surfaces. but this is also something I've encountered with other inside-out solutions, so overall I'd say it's not a big problem, just something to note. It is a generational leap over the Move though, that's for sure. Each controller also has a USB-C port on the bottom here for charging. So how does it all work in practice? Well, during this review we had access to these games, which are mostly just updated versions of previous released titles. Games such as Gran Turismo 7 and Resident Evil Village had not yet placed their updates live, unfortunately. Horizon Call of the Mountain is perhaps the best showcase for new hardware features. The game itself differs greatly from the mainline entries, but it focuses instead on granular interactions. Using the Sense controllers, you'll engage in everything from physically constructing weapons, utilizing various tools to climb steep rock walls, engaging in combat, and solve puzzles Tomb Raider style. It makes full use of haptic features and 3D spatial audio, plus it looks fantastic. Res Infinite makes a return with an updated version for PSVR 2. It's a fantastic showcase for the new HDR capabilities of the display and the controls made possible with this new hardware. The contrast is perfect, while colors and highlights are far brighter than any VR headset I've used. It's a real showcase. The haptics are of course used as well, as you'd expect from the game that gave us the trance vibrator, and you can use the Sense controllers, the headset, or your eyes for aiming. Thumper also receives an update and is extremely immersive. The haptics, increased contrast, brighter image, and higher resolution all result in a more immersive experience all around, and it remains just as awesome today as ever. Moss Book 1 and 2 have been updated for PSVR. This game has you sitting within various dioramas while controlling your character, and this one serves as a fantastic demonstration of the benefits of increased pixel count in the headset. If you try Moss on the original PSVR for instance, then switch over to PSVR 2, the leap in clarity is genuinely surprising. We already released a full video on Song in the Smoke Rekindled, and after trying it for myself, I can see why the team was so excited. All the various PSVR 2 features are put to use, and it helps create something that feels completely fluid and precise. Unfortunately, during testing, we did not have access to much in the way of new games, aside from Horizon, but those we did play at least offer a glimpse of what the hardware can truly bring to the table. So that's basically the hardware in a nutshell then. But before I present my final thoughts on it, I want to talk about a couple additional features as well. Firstly, the theater mode. Like PSVR, this allows you to view 2D content within the headset using a resizable virtual screen. Thanks to the dramatic increase in brightness and clarity of this screen, however, I found it infinitely more viable this time around. Imagery is sharp and clear, and the games themselves are remarkably vibrant. More importantly, the headset supports 2D games capable of 120Hz output and HDR, which basically means you have a full 120Hz HDR OLED screen for use with regular content. It's a pretty awesome feature. Then of course there's the capture situation. Now I expect this isn't something most people need to worry about, but for content creators it's important. As you can see, the footage in this review is all relatively sharp. It was captured at 4K directly from the PS5's HDMI video output. PSVR 1 in comparison produced extremely blurry footage with obvious borders and exceptionally nasty image quality. But in comparison, PS5 looks really crisp in this mode. The only downside is that it seemingly outputs 60Hz at max, and depending on how the game is designed, you might even get some screen tearing in the capture. You don't see it in the headset. As a result of this limitation, it's currently impossible for us to actually accurately run performance tests on PSVR 2 software, which is a shame. So what do I think of PSVR 2 overall then? Well, as a hardware device, it's an impressive package. It competes with more expensive PC headsets and is a lot more comfortable to use than PSVR 1 while offering a ton of potential. And that's the problem, it's just potential. Right now the headset is very expensive and it's only available through Sony themselves, at least as far as I can tell. This leads me to wonder whether or not the install base will grow fast enough to warrant producing bigger games for the platform. Now don't get me wrong, the software lineup at launch is pretty solid, although I didn't have access to all of them during this review period, but many of the games are just enhanced conversions of prior releases. At least several offer free upgrades, but still, they're older games. Should it find its place in the market and gain that PC support via modders, I would definitely say it's worth picking up, but for now I would use a little caution. Of course, if you are a PSVR 1 player and are looking for the next step in virtual reality, PSVR 2 absolutely delivers. This is a vastly superior VR experience that brings all the advances seen in other areas of the market to PlayStation 5, along with some key improvements including HDR OLED output. So yeah, it's a great headset, definitely worth checking out, but boy, it's pretty expensive. That's going to do it for this video, however. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.